Wave is a text by Sonali Dharaniyagara. This is one of the most moving books that is seen today. And William Dunbar has, for an example, mentioned that this is the most moving book I have read about grief. It's also a very fine book about love. And there's another quotation about wave. And while on wave, love reveals itself by the bleak or dark intensity of the pain of absolute, irreplaceable loss. Irreplaceable. You can't, have something else and replace the lost thing. It is in the end a love story and a book about the importance of love. So we all know what wave is about. Sonali Dharaniyagara is a Sri Lankan who studied, worked, married, and lived in England. So, an economist by profession, she married Steve Leisenberg, a research professor, and had two sons, Vikram and Mali. In 2004, the Leisenbergs, the whole family, came to Sri Lanka on holiday. On 26th of December, they were caught in the devastating or destroying tsunami which swept over southern part of Sri Lanka. They were in a hotel in Yala, which was overrun by the fateful tidal wave. Sonali lost her husband, her two young sons, and her parents. She was the only survivor. She was herself badly injured but survived. For a long time, she could not accept the truth of her loss and she attempted several times to commit suicide. But her watchful relations prevented her from harming her son. After about 3 years, she went to a home in London where objects used by her husband and the sons and memory persuaded her to accept the truth of her loss finally. And that's the place and that's the situation where she started writing this book. It's her story. It's a story of grief. Just to get out of her grief, she wrote all her painful feelings here. Sonali now lives in New York and works as a visiting lecturer at the University of Columbia. Wave is a memoir, her own feelings and her story. Memoir means that. Recording the events of the fateful December 26. It brings back her pain and agony. It is a living testimony or a proof of the horror or the kind of worst things that can happen because of a natural disaster, especially because of tsunami. And also it's a story about human suffering and endurance or bearing something. When we think about the section or the extract taken from the wave, we can see, first of all, how Sonali identifies that something wrong is around and she wants to just run away. The speaker and the family were staying at a hotel in Sri Lanka and she had a sudden and unexpected sight of danger. She did not know what it was, and anyway, she, like getting a kind of maternal instinct, thought that it's the time to run away. And she just ran away, even forgetting to call her own parents. She just took the children up and ran. The whole family ran for safety, but the horrible tsunami waves devastated Sri Lanka within minutes, so they could not go far. They actually went by jeep, the vehicle in which the speaker, her family, and few others who came were trying to flee. Overturned, or the vehicle was turned upside down, and she was left battered and alone. And for a moment she actually thought that she was under something crushed. She thought that the whole body was crushed, maybe under a building or something. But then she understood, when her conscience came back to her, that it was not something heavy on her body, but it was just the power of the water. It was power of the water. So throughout the story, actually, we see quite a lot of things happening other than this main plot. We see a mother with a maternal instinct running away from danger just with the aim or the sole objective of protecting her children. Later on, she repents because she did not stop even for a blink, even for a second, to knock at the parents' door and say, "We are running." And there are we can also see there's a little bit of selfishness, but that selfishness comes out of her selfless love for her children. And when they come in the jeep, one girl falls down, and then they could not wait for everyone to gather and help everyone and run. So it was sort of selfish thing that was happening, but still she had to run, she had to save her children. And throughout the story, she explains how she held the children up so that they could breathe even at the last moment. And Steve actually saw more because he looked back while Sonali was looking into the children. So he was shocked because he probably saw the devastating waves coming behind, and nothing. And also the fact that how she explains about something that she never knew is quite interesting, because she says how the waves came to the beach, and then to the conifers, then to the window, then how it gushed, and then it was silent, then again it came gushing in, and they thought that again it was silent and it was fine and they could go by jeep and to a safer place, but then all of a sudden it came up again. So the way and the beauty of the language and the power of the language she uses is so mesmerizing, and it gives such a kind of emotional impact to the reader, because the reader feels like the reader himself is in that context. So throughout this, basically what we see as themes is the impact of natural disasters, maternal instinct, love and relationships, how humans deal with relationships, and also overbearers and irreplaceable loss. That's one of the basic thing that the writer focuses on, right? Loss and irreplaceable loss. You can't replace the thing or the person that is lost. So when we go through this main prose, the extract given, you can think about questions like this. Number one, a mother's prime concern and attention are on her children and on nothing else. How does Sonali bring out details and feelings of a mother's love in way? So I think it's very clear that she just becomes a symbol of motherhood. She stands for all the mothers in the world. So her only concern and attention are on her children. She even forgets her own parents. She does not give the children even to Steve. She just drags the children and runs because she just wants to take the children out of danger. And throughout the story, as already mentioned, she explains how she pushes the children to the jeep so that they get their knees bruised, they get injured because she pushes them in a hurry. And then when the water comes into the jeep, she would somehow try to hold the children up so that they can breathe. And so all that throughout those few hours, what she tries to do and what she attempts to do, sometimes selfish work, like forgetting the parents and running and not asking the driver for the second time to stop and take the people who have fallen from the jeep. So even selfish things like that she does out of the selfless love for the children. So that shows a prime concern and attention on children and nothing else. And question number 2, where brings out the selfishness as well as selflessness of the narrator. I think that's something common that we have already discussed throughout. She is selfish because of the few examples we discussed, but that selfishness comes as a result of her selfless love for her children. And so it's very important to read this story again and again to get a feel of it, to understand it, and then try to answer the question.